Hey Siri, lights on. It's been a little over 2 months since I moved to Brooklyn after living in Manhattan during my first year as a college graduate, my first year as an adult. Before I moved, I was feeling the weight of uncertainty bearing down on me as I was deciding where I'd live next. But since moving to Brooklyn, this subconscious weight has been lifted off my shoulders and made me realize this was the best decision I could have made for myself given who I am and the life I aspire to live. And while it took me 2 months to make this video, the realization honestly came within 2 days. I moved to Manhattan, which may as well be synonymous with New York City, for many of the same reasons any wide-eyed 20-year-old looking to discover themselves and their place in the world would. After years of seeing Manhattan romanticized in pop culture, years of watching the Times Square ball drop on New Year's Eve from the comforts of suburban Pennsylvania, whether I realized it or not at the time, a part of me slowly began to dream about calling it home one day. And when I moved to Manhattan after graduating college, to Times Square of all places, saw all the flashing lights and endless streets outside my doorstep, I really did feel like this kid from the suburbs had made it. So long as you're able to support yourself, living in New York City provides a sense of freedom and exploration at your fingertips that is unlike any other place in the world. Living here grants you access to an ocean of opportunities to be whoever you want to be, to do whatever you want to do. Living here grants you access to the opportunity to dream. While I can pretend making it an opportunity were my only reasons for moving to Manhattan, I'd be lying to you all and lying to myself if I left it at that. Though this wasn't actually the case, it seemed everyone around me, particularly those on the same path as I was, those who were considered conventionally successful by societal standards, was moving to Manhattan. And deep down, I believed that if I didn't, I'd be left behind. Not enough in some way to make it to the big city. The first few months of living in Manhattan were all anyone could have dreamed of. And for who I was at the time, all I could dream of. While I was working quite a bit in my free time, as any 22-year-old with newfound freedom, independence, and an adult allowance would, I explored the new backdrop of my life to the best of my ability, trying everything and anything. Dive bars, clubs, 3 a.m. nights, Soho shopping, fine dining, wandering the city. Every weekend was some combination of the above, and all anyone around me seemed to care for as well. Living for the weekend, to leave the prior week behind. But I found that I couldn't relate. I looked forward to, yearned for Saturday mornings. An early morning workout followed by journaling in the park. The time and space to be with myself, with my thoughts, and my feelings. The solitude to reflect back on the prior week, to reflect on my life and the direction it was headed. Over time, I slowly lost interest in the activities I had convinced myself I should be doing, as any 22-year-old with newfound freedom, independence, and an adult allowance should. And over time, this inescapable gnawing feeling, this sensation of a pebble in the shoe, slowly grew. And the thing is, most people go their entire lives with the pebble stuck in their shoe, become conditioned to the sensation. They run through life from point A to point B, numbing the feeling with drinks and late nights, material items, and superficial relationships. Others choose to stop, pause, and examine the feeling, to ask themselves, why something feels off.
Hey Siri, lights off.
It took me leaving Manhattan and removing myself from that environment to be able to fully put into words where I was living in misalignment. Living in Manhattan made me realize I'm just not a high stimuli or fast paced person. Instead, I appreciate a slower pace, one that is more intentional and thoughtful. I feel most myself in quiet environments where I'm able to be still and fully present with my thoughts and feelings. And while these opportunities aren't impossible to find in Manhattan, as a whole, living there just isn't conducive to this way of life. You can go to a park or a seemingly quiet area, but there's still cars honking, construction going on, and people just about everywhere. There's nothing inherently wrong with any of this, but I found it difficult to feel like I was truly at home. Difficult to not feel like I was running through life, weaving through traffic and seas of people to get from point A to point B, instead of taking my time and appreciating the journey. A few months of experimenting with all the standard Manhattan activities made me realize just how simple of a person I really am. That I honestly derive a lot more joy from spending time with myself, doing these same basic activities I've done throughout my entire life. Working out, reading, wandering, and exploring a new area, none of which really require me to live in Manhattan. Paying for the vibe of a restaurant rather than the food itself stopped making sense to me, especially when all that really matters is the company you're with, whether it's with others or just yourself. Shopping around in Soho for the 20th time got old, especially when my favorite outfit is just light wash jeans, a t-shirt, and a hat. Going to crowded bars and clubs to drink, forget the work week, and have superficial conversations sap my energy. The more I did what people around me did, the more I realized I don't enjoy any of this. So I stopped, because why would I keep doing something I don't enjoy? As I began to understand who I truly am and what I value in life, the more I realized the dissonance between myself and what Manhattan is known for. The dissonance between what I value and what people living there value. As someone who values quality over quantity, living in an environment that has it flipped was difficult for me. The more conversations I had, the more I realized Manhattan is just an echo chamber, especially for people in their 20s. A place where everyone is seemingly hustling and grinding 24/7 to try and level up or make more money. A place full of people striving for what those around them are striving for more rather than enough. They strive without ever really pausing to ask themselves why they want more. What is enough? And when I would ask and they would try to answer, they'd repeat what they'd heard or read, not what they believe. The truth is, they're too busy hustling and grinding, too busy running through life to the next goalpost to slow down, pause, and ask themselves the simple question, why?
Thank you for the food.
Perhaps they're afraid, driven by a fear of being viewed as unsuccessful. But the irony, they've adopted someone else's definition of success as their own, been working towards someone else's dream, not their own, living someone else's life, not their own. I've heard love described as the sensation of coming home, but that description has always been a bit complicated for me. Conceptually, I'd always understood what that was supposed to feel like, but growing up, I can't say I could speak from firsthand experience. But the more I understood myself, the more I loved myself, the more I began to understand the feeling. I love early morning walks to the gym, when the neighborhood is still slow to wake up, and I'm able to hear the birds chirping, able to hear my own unobstructed thoughts. I love going for walks in the middle of the day and seeing families lined up to pick their kids up from school. Oh, and I don't mind the midday shrieks of joy and laughter that come from kids at recess. I love that the streets wind down by 10 p.m. as the neighborhood gets ready for bed, just as I am. I love exploring nearby neighborhoods and wide streets lined with timeless brownstones. I love being able to take life at my own pace and enjoy the journey instead of worrying about rushing to my destination. I love being fully at peace in my environment, one where I'm not judged or misunderstood, one where I'm empowered to be my authentic self and no one else. Most of all, I love being home. For many people in their 20s, especially post-grad, moving to Manhattan feels like a rite of passage. In search of themselves and their place in the universe, they flock to Manhattan, almost like a modern age manifest destiny. But the thing is, when you get to your destination, you may very well realize that you got off at the wrong stop, were headed in the wrong direction, that the destiny you thought was yours was, in reality, someone else's. And while I wish there was an easier process to have that realization, the best teachers are simply experience and reflection. So I encourage you all to try everything out. Try moving to Manhattan or wherever in the world you've been thinking about. Try out the things anyone in their 20s with newfound freedom, independence, and an adult allowance would. Experience everything for yourself, just as I did. You may realize you enjoy some aspects more and others less. You may realize which of your values are deeply rooted and which are surface level. So long as you reflect on your own unique experience and don't take the words of someone else, you can point yourself in a direction that aligns with your own destiny and no one else's. So if you're feeling the pressure to move to Manhattan and by and large, New York City, if you're experiencing FOMO or feelings of inadequacy, I hope that you're able to remember this. Where you live doesn't matter. Whether it's a city lined with skyscrapers or a small town without a CVS, but rather that you stay true to yourself and what you value. Because ultimately, the environment you choose to live in is a reflection of that statement. And when chosen with intention and care, can empower you to live your life in a manner that is authentic to who you uniquely are. And that's all you need. That's where you come home.